Thank you everyone for joining us today. It's great to have so many of you here. We understand it is a really busy time of year for you, and we really appreciate your support for this event. So on behalf of everyone at Oxford, I would like to extend a very warm welcome. Before we get started, I would like to take this opportunity to respectfully acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land where we live, learn, and work, and to pay our respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. I'm now delighted to hand over to Joanna Lake, Senior Publisher here at Oxford, who is going to introduce you to a unique range of new resources that develop phonic and comprehension skills. Hi, Jo, can you turn your camera on?
Hi, Kate, and hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm really excited to talk to you about our new series, Oxford Reading for Comprehension Decodables. So I will start today with a quote, which is the two vital aspects to becoming an accomplished and motivated reader, word recognition and language comprehension processes, are brought together in this exciting new series. This quote is from Laura Sharp, who's a phonics expert who worked on the original Letters and Sounds sequence and program in the UK, and who has been a consultant on this series and helped us with the fully decodable texts. Each text in the series is fully decodable. She's got great experience and she's helped us with the implementation of phonics into the program. I'm going to start today with just looking at this diagram, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, the Simple View of Reading, Goff and Tumner, 1986. I wanted to show this at the start of the session today because I think it really succinctly brings together the focus of this series, which is to support the development of both phonics skills and comprehension skills in students. You can see here on this diagram that in the top right-hand corner, you have a successful reader, and it's because of the intersection of two skill areas, strong word reading skills, which can be developed and are developed in a strong way through phonics, and also strong comprehension skills. Word reading alone is not enough to be a successful reader. You have to be able to understand the words that you're reading and understand how to use those texts that you've read to make meaning through different skills, such as inference and bringing prior knowledge to the words that you're reading. So those two key skills are really important. And when we've been developing Oxford Reading for Comprehension Decodables, we've had that in mind the whole time, both the phonics side of the series, but also developing strong comprehension skills. So today we're going to have a look at the series. We're going to have a look at the phonics structure of the series, and we're also going to look at the comprehension framework that supports the books. We're going to look at how skill development is supported through the series. So we're really going to focus on how each of the components is helping both teachers and students to have successful sessions where they are developing both phonics and comprehension skills together. So we're going to look at the guided reading text, the fiction and non-fiction titles. We're going to look at the phonics and comprehension coaching that sits and comes with each book. We're going to look at the phonics and comprehension activity sheets, one for each title. We're going to look at the teacher handbook and the accompanying digital resources, of which there are many. And we're also going to have a look at the eBook shelf, which is the online location of all our fully decodable titles. So let's just look at some of the unique features of this series. So as I've mentioned, all 60 titles in the series support both the development of phonic knowledge and comprehension skills, those two key skill areas required to be a successful reader. The series supports strong phonic knowledge in every student by practicing new sounds introduced via a proven phonic framework, Letters and Sounds. And we'll look in more detail at the phonics sequence a little bit later in the session. We also support strong comprehension development in every student using a research-based comprehension skills framework. The Comprehension Skills Framework allows you to have a consistent language around comprehension with your students, to identify the key areas of comprehension with your students, those key strands or skills within the overarching comprehension skill set. And it also lets us have some or utilise some metacognitive strategies that are attached to this framework, and we'll look at that in more detail as well. The introduction of new sounds is supported by one fiction title and one non-fiction title in Oxford Reading Levels 1 to 6. And this really supports strong early vocabulary acquisition. Every time you're introducing some new sounds with students, you're introducing them through both a fiction and non-fiction lens, which is allowing a wider range of vocabulary and subject-specific vocabulary, all of which is fully decodable. So there's non-fiction from the very earliest levels in this series, which is a really exciting feature. We also have incorporated the latest Oxford word list into the series, and we provide guidance on how you can use the Oxford word list aligned to the phonic progression of the series. So we show at what point Oxford word list words can be introduced with students in line with the phonic sequence and decodability. So again, we'll just talk here about these two frameworks or pillars of the series that support these two skill areas that we're developing. We've got our phonic skill set, which is supported by letters and sounds. So that gives us a specific sequence in which we're introducing the GPCs, the grapheme phoneme correspondences, or the sounds. So it's very, very structured. And then we also have our Comprehension Skills Framework. And as I mentioned previously, this provides both an outline of the different comprehension skills, a language to use around comprehension, some consistency, and ways for students to be able to start identifying their own thinking around comprehension and understand when and how to apply different comprehension skills. So here we'll look at, in a little bit more detail, the phonics structure. So as I mentioned, the Letters and Sounds framework provides us with the phonics structure for ORFC decodables. It specifies the focused GPCs, the high frequency words, allowable adjacent consonant usage, contractions, suffixes and endings in each book. So what you can see is that this framework around phonics actually gives us a lot more than just the sounds. It gives us a very consistent structure around which we have created these titles. And that means that we've really controlled the complexity in the books, which is really helping support students as they learn the GPCs, gradually introduce adjacent consonant usage, the use of various suffixes, etc. And we're really supporting that progression through the books. You can see here that I've got two examples from the series here. We've got book number 15 and book number 16, and these are a pair, a fiction and a non-fiction pair. We've got Buzz the Bot and I Can. They're phase 3, set 7, so that's the alignment to letters and sounds. And then you can see I've got broken down all this other information about what is being used in this text. So we've got our focused GPCs, so y, z, z, and qua, and we've got the common words. Here there aren't any decodable words, and we've got some common tricky words. So these are high frequency words that are introduced in these books. That will be words that are commonly used at this level and that students need to know. And you'll recognise he, she as two words that need to be introduced so that students are getting lots of practice with those. There are no adjacent consonants in this book except for where the S sound is added for a plural. And we've got no contractions and we're introducing the ES suffix here. So this information is all found in the teacher handbook. We have really detailed phonics tables in the teacher handbook so you can see exactly what is happening in every book. So it's really easy to support your students and know in advance what's going to be introduced in the texts. This is an overview of the structure of the series, and you can see here we've got our Oxford reading levels and we've got our letters and sounds criteria or our alignment. So with our Oxford reading levels, that is Oxford's levelling system. It is aligned to the introductions of those GPCs and contains lots of other criteria, which means that these books are really meticulously levelled to phonic and wider reading levelling criteria. And as I mentioned before, this really ensures that skill progression across word reading and comprehension are happening in tandem. So these books have been developed to make sure that all the content within the books, both the sounds that are being introduced, the sentence structures, the number of words in the book, all those types of things, the number of words on a page even, is very tightly controlled. And this means that students are being challenged to read a text that is introducing new sounds, but there are also, there's enough content in there that they're comfortable with for them to have a really successful reading experience, which is really important for students to help them progress. Now we're going to have a look at the Comprehension Skills Framework, which I mentioned is the comprehension framework which we use for this series. The framework is based on the findings of multiple international studies into how children develop reading comprehension and the effective teaching of comprehension. So a large study was done across a wide range of research on comprehension, and from that analysis, these 5 comprehension skill categories were pulled out. Professors Jane Oakhill and Kate Kane were significant contributors to research in this area, and they've advised in the development of this framework and the use of the associated metacognitive strategies. So what you'll see here is on the right in the table are our comprehension strategies. So these are the strategies that we're using in the moment of reading to get information from the text. So we're doing things like determining importance, monitoring comprehension, maybe activating prior knowledge. We might be visualizing, so imagining what a scene looks like from the text that we're reading. So those are the things that are happening in the moment of reading. After reading, we're going to use the information we've pulled out from those strategies and combine that information together. And that allows us to display one of these 5 skills. So we've got finding information, retrieving literal information from the text or pictures about characters, settings, and overtly expressed feelings. We've got the skill of making connections and inferences. This is probably the most complex of the skill categories because it's the reading between the lines of text, finding clues and building meaning from information that isn't explicitly stated in the text. We've got understanding vocabulary, which is identifying the meaning of words and phrases. We've got understanding structure and organisation, really important, making sense of a text by understanding the message, ordering events that have happened, identifying main ideas, drawing on knowledge of text conventions, forms and features, and then finally appreciating the author's toolkit, understanding how the author uses language and punctuation to create effect, being aware of author's intent, and expressing evaluative opinions on a text. So those 5 categories are really important for students to be able to master to really get everything from a text that they're reading. So now let's look in more detail at the series and how these frameworks are embedded within the series. So what we've got as part of the series are our 60 fully decodable texts, which you can see a couple on screen there. We've got our new teacher handbook. We've got downloadable phonics and comprehension coaching notes, so one for every text that you can use in your guided reading sessions. We've got our phonics and comprehension activity sheets, one for each text. We've got our extensive support materials on Oxford OWL, which are really fantastic. So much extra content on Oxford OWL, and that's for free if you sign up. And then we've got our ebook shelf with 60 titles. So let's start by looking at our guided reading texts. And we've got some beautiful covers on the screen there, and you can see fiction and non-fiction. So these are aligned to letters and sounds phases 1 to 6 and Oxford reading levels 1 to 9. So back cover gives some really important quick information about the phonics information in each book. So you can see here we've got our Oxford level at the top, Oxford reading level at the top, and we've got if it's fiction or non-fiction. And then we've got the letters and sounds phase and set, if applicable. We've got listed the new sounds that are the focus of this book. So here it would be g, o, k. And we've got the high frequency words that are practiced in this title. So we've got here got, can, not, and on. And of course, each book is fully decodable, and we've got that under there. So really, when you're looking for a text, you can just pick up the back cover, have a look, and you've got the information to see if this is the correct text that you want to use with a student or group of students in this lesson. On the inside front cover, we've got some quick phonics information. So again, we've got a little reminder to say the sounds. So practice those 4 new sounds introduced in the text. Also have a go at saying those new high frequency sounds out loud. Just remind students of those, because that will really help them when they get to them in the text. And then we've just got a note reminding students to say and blend the letter sounds in unfamiliar words. So just reminding students to be using that phonic knowledge to be sounding out and blending those on any words that they're unfamiliar with. So really prompting them to do that every time that they feel that they're not 100% sure on the word, be sounding that out straight away. And then on the inside back cover, we've got some comprehension notes. So we've got some before reading questions. So it encourages some prediction before reading. We've got during reading. So we've got 5 questions linked to our Comprehension Skills Framework that you can ask throughout. And then we've got some notes for after reading. And this information is all different from that which is in the Phonics and Comprehension coaching. So all the questions and before reading prompts are different from the back cover to your Phonics and Comprehension coaching notes. So you've actually got 2 sets of questions for every book. So you've got different questions for if you want to do 2 read-throughs of the text. So let's have a look inside some of the texts. I've picked out some fiction and non-fiction to have a look at. So you can see here how new sounds are introduced via fiction and non-fiction. We're quite early here, so we're still in these early levels. We're in phase 2, set 2. We're introducing the sounds m, I, d, n. So students are going to be practicing words that have those new sounds in them. We've got Pip the kitten on the left, which is a very sweet story about a rather naughty little kitten. And then we've got a non-fiction on the right, which is about cooking. And you can see here, we've got some different vocabulary here, but what we've also got is quite different layouts. And we've got a label here for the non-fiction. So you can start to see that in having fiction and non-fiction at these early levels, or right from the beginning of the series, students are getting comfortable with reading both fiction and non-fiction texts and starting to understand what some of these non-fiction text features are. Here is a look at one of my favourite books in the series, A Shark at the Pool. This is a little bit further into the phonics sequence. We've got a little bit more text here. We've got some speech bubbles. We've got a really wide variety of vocabulary, all of which is fully decodable. We've got these really engaging, fully decodable texts, but that still have really strong storylines to support and promote comprehension development. So even though the texts are fully decodable, the stories have really been developed to make sure that there is still lots for students to be finding, delving into, and looking to understand within the text, so that we can really also be developing those comprehension skills at the same time. We've got coverage of our focus GPCs, of course, But we've also got these great stories and really beautiful illustrations that are really engaging for students to be reading. These fully decodable texts are just a lovely reading experience for students. And here we've got a non-fiction. And again, you can see we've got a rich use of vocabulary across the non-fiction settings. And we're providing those non-fiction reading experiences from Oxford Reading Level 1. So it's really expanding vocabulary choice. Obviously, we're going to have some different types of images, photographic images. We've got lovely design. And then throughout these fiction books, we're slowly starting to introduce those non-fiction text features, labels. As we move into the higher levels, we've got diagrams, tables, etc. So students are still getting that opportunity to really develop their non-fiction reading skills, which are really important as you move up primary school. So let's have a look at the Phonics and Comprehension coaching notes and how they can be used to support phonics and comprehension skill development in your guided reading sessions. So we cover both phonics and comprehension. You can see at the top, you've got a quick reminder of the new sounds introduced in the text and the new high frequency words. So if you have this with you in your guided reading session, you've got everything you need to start this session with some phonics prompts and with some phonics reminders. We then have a little bit of comprehension information. So as I mentioned, we use our Comprehension Skills Framework and we have some metacognitive strategies associated with that. So what that means is that we're asking students to think about their thinking when it comes to comprehension. And what we know from research is that using metacognitive strategies and getting students to think about and talk out loud about their thinking processes really helps them to embed those strategies. So here what we do is we have a think aloud, which is going to help us practice one of our comprehension strategies. So those things that you do in the moment of reading to gather information about the text. So here, the comprehension strategy is ask a question. So the think aloud that the student could use is, what question can I ask that will help me understand this part of the text better? So as a teacher or someone leading a guided reading group, you might like to model that and show students how to do that. And then throughout the guided reading session, you may pause for a moment and use that strategy, think aloud again. Model that yourself, or maybe ask students to model it for the group. We've then got some questions for activating prior knowledge and to encourage some prediction before you start reading. During reading, we're going to be really focusing on our phonics skills, in that we're going to be obviously practicing these new GPCs within words in the text, and we're going to be encouraging students to sound out and blend sounds together for any words that they're not familiar with. And then this is a really key opportunity for us to be getting students to practice their comprehension skills, and a good opportunity for you to see how students are going with those comprehension skills. So what you can see is a list of questions here for all the pages in the book, and they're tagged with those comprehension skills. So when you're asking a question, you know which skill a student is going to need to be using to get this question right. Now you can use that key to either pick out questions for certain comprehension skills, if those are the ones that you're most keen to focus on, or you might just like to use all the questions, but as you're going through, you might be making some notes or ticking off which students are correctly using the comprehension skills, which comprehension skills maybe some of the students are struggling with, and that might be something that then indicates you might want to go back and have another talk about that in another lesson. After reading, we've got our phonics and comprehension activity sheet, and we've also got a practical activity, and these are a range of activities that are either individual or they might be group activities, things that you can do in class, where students will be displaying comprehension skills. So there is a variety of activities that you can use after the book to sort of continue on and develop skills through that reading session. Here's a look at the phonics and comprehension activity sheets. This is from an early level, so we've got 2 questions here for students to complete. The first question is labelled with a little p, and that's a phonics question. And you can see these sounds were the sounds that were new sounds introduced in this book, thud. And so students are going to be working with those sounds in this question. The second question is a comprehension activity, and that is got a little key beside it, which indicates which comprehension skills students will be practicing when they complete that activity. So again, that is a little guide for students to help them think, what should I be doing to understand this correctly? We've talked about this comprehension skill, and these are the things that I might do when I'm practicing this skill. It's also a really great key if you're having a look at that work and quickly checking off what skills students are doing well with, or ones that they might need a bit more practice with. The teacher handbook for this series is really supportive and gives lots of fantastic information about phonics in your classroom, really on an everyday level. So we've got an overview of the series, the components and the underlying pedagogy. So there's information about the research that the series is based on, and information about the phonics sequence and the Comprehension Skills Framework. It's got guidance on the phonics progression and talks about that comprehension research. It also has a really great section called Phonics in the Classroom, which is guidance and instruction for teacher-led activities that could be used as warm-ups, consolidation, and to embed phonics development through the day. Many of these activities involve using sound talk, so breaking words down into their component phonemes. These are really short activities, 2 to 8 minutes, that you might like to do at different times of the day, just to help you and your students to continually focus on those new sounds in the period in which you're working on them. So it doesn't have to be incorporated necessarily into the literacy block. It might just be a 3-minute pre-lunch activity, or 2 minutes after the kids come back after recess, that you just jump on and have a quick go with some sounds, just to keep that sound practice happening throughout the day with your students. There's also the detailed phonic overview, every book in the series, and also some guidance on monitoring student development across phonics and comprehension skills. I wanted to give you an idea of the level of information that is included in the phonic overview tables in the teacher handbook, because they can be used as a really great planning tool. So here I've pulled out an example from the teacher handbook for the buzzing bee, which is at Letters and Sounds Phase 3 and Oxford Reading Level 3. You can see that on the left-hand side of the table. What you can also see is the focus GPCs for this book. And we've also included every word in the book that includes those focus GPCs. So if you're starting your guided reading session and you think that there is a sound or sounds that you've introduced that students might be struggling with a little bit or may need some more practice with, you could simply use this table and have a quick practice with these words before you start reading, because that'll really support students in embedding the sounds, but also having a really successful read as they meet those words in sentences in the story or the non-fiction text. You'll also see that we've listed out the high frequency words, see and was, that are included, and the pages that they appear on, in case you want to practice those sentences or pick out those words and focus on those during the session. We've got developing vocabulary. So here we've got some words that are all fully decodable, but that might have something, that might have 2 components that makes the word a little more challenging. For example, buzzing, we've got both the double Z sound, and we've also got the suffix ing on the end. So that, again, may be something you want to practice or pull out if you've been talking about that suffix ing. And then we list out all the times that the suffix and endings appear in the book, again, if you'd like to have a practice of those beforehand. So you can see that this is a really great tool for understanding where the new things that you're introducing in this text, or the new things that you're practicing in this text, are within the book. And that can really help you run a really successful guided reading session. I mentioned we have lots of resources on Oxford OWL. This is the Oxford Reading for Comprehension Decodables page. You can see you've got lots of little tiles with different pieces of information in there. What you can access here is all 60 phonics and comprehension coaching notes. So you can access those and just have them on screen or print out a copy if you'd like to. We've got the activity sheets there so that they can be printed off. We mentioned those metacognitive strategies and those think alouds that we can use with students to really help them with their comprehension development. We have flashcards for those, which you can print off. If your students find flashcards helpful, they're available there. We've got some graphic organizer templates to support comprehension skill development. They're tagged to the Comprehension Skills Framework, and you can download those. Great activities to do alongside texts to help develop some of those comprehension skills. We've got some student assessment record templates. And then, as I mentioned, we've got this Oxford word list guidance. So the Oxford word list, which many of you will be familiar with and you may use as your list of high frequency words that you use with students, we have aligned the word list to the phonic progression. So you can introduce the Oxford word list words alongside the new sounds that you're introducing. So it's aligned to the phonic sequence, which is, I think, a really helpful document and something that might be really helpful in working on those high frequency words alongside your systematic synthetic phonics teaching. Now, you can see here we've got our ebook shelf for the ORSC decodables, and I'm going to hand over to my colleague Mick, who's going to walk you through how you can use the ebook library and all its features. Thanks, Mick.
Thanks, Jo, and good afternoon, everybody. A very warm welcome to you on this beautiful sunny Sydney afternoon. Welcome to my office. Now, I'm just going to share my screen here. I will take you through this wonderful platform. Now, many of you may well be familiar with Oxford OWL. It's our wonderful platform that is a free resource. If you are unfamiliar with it, I would strongly suggest you jumping on to the website, as you can see there, oxfordowl.com.au, and registering. It is, like I said, it's a free resource, and there's a whole swag of great stuff and rich content in here for you. So I'm just going to log in. This is the landing page for oxfordowl.com.au. As you can see here, there's quite a number of tiles. Now, what's really important to note here before I get into the Reading for Comprehension ebook platform, all of those yellow tiles are free resources. There's guided reading notes for many of our guided reading series. There's interactive whiteboard activities for things like our Oxford handwriting, extra resources for the actual Reading for Comprehension platform, as well as a whole host of other things. But these lilac covered tiles here, they are all subscription-based resources. Some of you will be very familiar with some of them, like Maths Plus, Oxford Maths, Atlas Plus. However, let's go down to the lovely little tile down here at the bottom of the screen, the Oxford Reading for Comprehension Decodables, and take you in here. Now, as Jo just pointed out, she showed you this page here where you have the decodable activity sheet. So you've got one Blackline Master per for each one of the 60 books that we've got there. You've got all of the coaching cards that she mentioned. The word list teacher support, the Oxford word list teacher support, the graphic organisers there. You've got the flashcards, and I'll just quickly show you these because these are really cool. So the Think Aloud flashcards. Here we go. Think Aloud flashcards. Think Aloud activity activate prior knowledge. What do I already know? What can help me understand what I'm reading? So those resources are there for you as well. You can they're just PDFs, so you can print them off as you need them. You got the assessment records, as Jo pointed out, the ebook platform, which I'll get to in a moment. But you've also got some great videos here, which are a really cool resource. Two of them by Susan Taylor, who's an expert in literacy from Sydney area. And there's also one here with a conversation with the very own Jo Lake, who we have heard from this afternoon. And there's a lovely little unpacking video here by one of my colleagues, which is also well worth having a look at were you to purchase the series. However, let's go into the ebook platform because this is fantastic. So here we have the Decodable ebook platform. As you can see, all of the books for the series are here, all the way down to the very bottom here, but it's a false bottom because we can load more, and they all show up here on the screen. All the way through, it's probably one of my favourites there, the big animals. I am a big fan of the blue whale. But as you can see here, each of the books has not only the title, but the Oxford level and also the phase for the letters and sounds that it covers off. So you can quite easily and very quickly take yourself to the level and the book that you're after. If you are unsure of the title that you really would like, you can choose here on the view side of things, the Oxford level 1 through to Oxford level 9, and you can choose accordingly. Or if there's a particular phase and a set that you're after, you can choose there as well. And it's very quick and easy to utilize that. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to quickly jump into one of these books. And the one I've chosen is Fun with Nan and Pop. And I think now that all of certainly Sydney and Victoria is open and we can have visitors, this is rather pertinent. So this is the front cover of the book. And you can either choose to go to a specific page if that's where you want to go, or you can simply open it. And what I will do, I'll just quickly show you the back, because as you can see, as Jo was saying before, with the physical books, the digital version of the books is exactly the same. You still have the Oxford reading level there, the fact that it's a non-fiction, all of the information you need straight away to start off. And then were you to open the book up, once again, you have exactly the same information as in the physical format. So you've got the ch, the sh, the th, and the n. What I think is a really great thing to do, and especially because this is a great way of being able to take the book from the classroom to the bedroom. It's that link so that the kids can read the book at school and they can learn to read the book at school and become familiar and comfortable with all of the sounds and the phonemes and the graphemes that they're using. But now with this ebook platform, they can take that self-same book and take it home and read it with their parents. So it's a great way to get the kids and the parents sitting down and the kids reading to the parents, saying the sounds out, and also using those high frequency words that they became familiar with in the classroom. Now, as you can see, it's a wonderful, actually, one thing I will show you very quickly is the inside back cover. Once again, as I said before, it's the same as before. You've got these questions that the parents can ask during the reading. So as a non-educator and a parent, this sort of stuff was fantastic when one of my children brought home a reader, and this sort of thing was really, really great because I was then able to assist them better in their reading and in their learning. And one of the things that it says there is, why do you think there's a bubble here? What do you think the authors in the book is trying to get you to do? So they're the sorts of questions you can ask with your children, and the parents can ask with their children. And there's another format. So you can discuss the differences between the cloud and the thought bubble rather, and the speech bubble. Now, one of the other things too, which is really great, down the very bottom here, you have a zoom in section and a zoom out section. Or if you really want to do it really quickly, you can just click reset. So this is ideal for front of class use as well, because what you can do, you've got these tools here with a bookmark and also the annotation thing here, so that you can utilize it within the classroom. Now, one thing that's very important to note here, so please remember this, you can't save it. So if you are sitting there at night going through and planning what you're doing for the following day, and you want to put a bookmark there and you want to make some notes here and say it's all ready for tomorrow, as soon as you close the book down, it disappears. So that's one thing you can't do. It's really more designed for being able to annotate and bookmark just before the lesson starts. As we're going through, again, it's a beautiful non-fiction. The visual literacy on these, especially, imagine that up on a big screen. It's absolutely spectacular. So there you go with that one. Now, just very quickly, I will take you to one other book, which is a little bit higher up. And the other thing I really do like about this series is that it is Australian. And this is so very evident with this book, Rock Art. And again, think cross-curricular here. There is just so much in this book, in this series. Once again, the developing vocab, the difficult words, and the words that are in this book. Once again, you've got the index there, and then it gets into the book. And again, these little marks here, these little sections at the bottom there, you can have the conversation around the kids. Why do you think that's there? Why do you think it's not part of that text up there? So it's very rich in what it's able to do and what you're able to for the children to take home. Jo, I think that's about it. I'll hand it back to you. Very conscious of the time there.
Thanks so much, Mick. That was great. And as you say, lovely to see a few more pages of those books and some of those beautiful fiction and non-fiction titles. So we're going to take a few questions now. So if you'd like to pop them into the chat box, if you do have a question that's come up as you've been watching the webinar so far, if you're a school that has purchased the series and is thinking about how you're going to get started with it, feel free to pop a question in. We're really happy to answer those. In the meantime, I'm going to get Kate to ask me a couple of questions, because I think there are some questions that we have had submitted. So I'll start off with those. But as I said, please feel free to put more into the chat and we'll try and get through those.
Just had a question pop through from Carolyn, very quick there.
Will there be more titles added? Yes, I think we will be adding more titles, Caroline. So obviously it does take a little bit of time to develop books, and these have just come out, but we're getting such a wonderful response from schools to the series, which is fantastic. And so that I think is a great prompt for perhaps making some more. So thanks for that question. Jennifer has asked how many books are in each pack. So generally these are purchased in packs of 6 books of the same title, and you'll see that price in our price lists. But if you have requirements for purchasing slightly differently for your guided reading groups, if your guided reading groups are not in 6 students, if they're 7 students or another number, just talk to your sales consultant, your local sales rep. We'll have details of how to find your local rep if you're not sure who to contact on our last slide, which will come up, and you can chat to them about options for purchasing. So yeah, definitely have that conversation and we can help you with that information. So will you be looking in the future to align to other phonics programs, e.g. Initial Lit? No, I think Initial Lit has their own sequence, which they have come up with themselves, and they own that sequence. We use Letters and Sounds. It's a really proven sequence. It's really systematic. It's quite finely done. And we apply that across other series that we have. So what we've got is quite a large group or a large range of fully decodable titles that are to the same sequence, meaning that you have lots of choice across a consistent sequence. So I hope that answers your question, Sarah. I'll wait and see if any other questions come through. In the meantime, Kate, did you want to pose one of the questions you had?
Yes, so how do I know which book or books to use with my students?
Okay, so how to choose the correct book? Well, I think as you can see from the presentation that I've given today, you know, the series has been designed for guided reading, that really sort of supportive part of practice and embedding sounds. So one way to choose the book is to have a look at the GPC focus of that book. So look at the new sounds that are being introduced in that book and the high frequency words, and match that to the sounds that you are introducing across the week or the 2-week period. So for example, you might be introducing through your phonics teaching the GPCs, which is the CK digraph, so EUR with that. I have to say my phonemes correctly. And then you would look to match that to some books in the ORSC Decodable. So we have a fiction title, Get Up Sam, and a non-fiction title, On the Farm, and they would be ideal to choose for your guided reading session that week because they are practicing those sounds. So you're going to have lots of words in those 2 books that are incorporating those new sounds that you're practicing. So these books are then going to give a really good guided, supportive reading session where you're practicing those sounds with the students. Similarly, if you want to assign some books for independent reading, you can assign a title or titles that include the GPCs a student might need to practice with. So this could be further practice of the GPCs currently being learnt in the week. So if you have, for example, we're thinking about those letters that the digraph CK and the letters EUR, those sounds, if you're working on those and you read the fiction title as your guided reading text for the week, you might assign the non-fiction for some independent practice. Or it may be that you've got a student who you've been, as part of your teaching program, you've done a little bit of an assessment and you found you've got a student that is struggling with a set of letters. Maybe it's the letters MIND. You might choose a book that focuses on introducing those sounds so that that student in their independent practice is going back and really having another good session, sounding out and blending words that have those letters that they need to practice a little bit more so that they're getting really confident with them. So that's 2 ways that you could decide and choose on text. And of course, you can use either the back covers to quickly pick out those texts because you've got the sounds labelled on each book, or you could quickly look through your teacher handbook and look at those phonics tables and match through that where you've got your GPC listings, and then you'll also have your high frequency words and those other criteria that we talked about when we looked at those phonics tables. I think we've had another question. How do your reading levels compare with other publisher levels? Thanks, Lynette, for that question. So you'll see that I've labelled our levelling as Oxford reading levels. So that is our own levelling system. What is quite unique about the Oxford reading levels is that our reading levels incorporate the phonics sequence as well. So when you look at an Oxford reading level, you can look at the Oxford reading level information that we provide and it will tell you the GPCs that are introduced in that level. So, and then it also has other reading criteria. So it is a little bit different. It goes from Oxford level 1 to Oxford level 20. I know lots of people might be familiar with reading recovery levels or PM levels. If you, again, talk to your sales consultant, they can give you some information about the alignment between those. But I think one thing that is a little bit different between our levels and other levelling systems is the fact that we take that phonics information into account into our Oxford reading levels, and that's kind of another criteria within our reading levels. We do have a really great booklet that your sales consultant can point you to, either a paper copy or we can provide you with a PDF. And it actually has one page on each Oxford reading level, and it really breaks down what you will see in every Oxford reading level. It's really explicit. And it's got some examples from our series. And so you can really see and get a good feel for our series, and also make that comparison between a book that you've used from a series that has another levelling system and Oxford reading levels. And that will help you understand that kind of alignment between perhaps a levelling system you're using at your school and our Oxford reading levels. I hope that's helped answer your question, Lynette. But as I said, if you want some more information, please feel free to email us or talk to your sales consultant, because we can give you more support around that.
Thanks, Jo. There was another one there from Jennifer as well, who wanted to know if RFC Decodables was aligned to the Read Write Ink sound sequence.
Great, thanks, Kate. Hi, Jennifer. These are not aligned to the Read Write Ink sound sequence. So Read Write Ink is its own program. Written by Ruth Miskin. Some people in the webinar might be quite familiar with it. And it's a phonics teaching program. So it's really that first step of teaching the sounds. And it has its own sequence. So it does have a different sequence to RFC Decodables. With Read Write Ink, there are the main text in the program, and what the books that you might read for extra practice that are aligned to the Read Write Ink sequence is something like the Read Write Ink book bag books. You may already have those, but if you don't, that might be something that you want to talk to your sales consultant about, because those books are specifically aligned to the Read Write Ink sequence. Deborah has asked, what phonics sequence do you use? So the ORFC decodables are aligned to letters and sounds sequence. So that's the sequence that starts off SATP, and then it's MIND next, and on from there. On our website, if you have a look at the ORFC Decodables series, you can actually, if you click on the phonics sequence, it takes you to a table and it shows you the sequence, so the exact order that those are rolled out. It's also included in the brochure about this series, which you can get online or by speaking to your sales consultant, and you can have a look through that, or you can have a sales consultant talk you through the sequence. So we're really explicit about the sequence. It's on all the information about the series. So have a look on there, and that will give you an idea of how these books introduce the sounds, and matching them to perhaps what you're using in your classroom. Thanks, Lynette. Are there any other questions that people wanted to ask? Or Kate, did you have any others?
When do you move from a decodable to a predictable text?
Okay, that's a great question. So in letters and sounds, and with most phonics sequences, you introduce your sort of single letter sounds, and then digraphs that make a sound, trigraphs, and then you have some alternate spellings and pronunciations, so where the same sound can be spelt in different ways. And you sort of end on what we call rarer GPCs. So GPCs that appear in a few words that you might come across quite frequently, but that are not in lots and lots of words. And for us, those are introduced starting at Oxford level 7 and then through into Oxford levels 8 and 9. Once you've gone through those rarer GPCs, then really you're moving into what you would call non-decodable or richer reading, because by that stage you will have encountered and learnt all the standard GPCs that students need to know to be able to quite automatically read, and you will have covered off some of those rarer ones that appear in words, like the sound that the IE makes in friends, for example, and obviously friends is a word that you use a lot. So things like that you will have covered off, and then really you're moving through. Most words then you read will be decodable, and then you'll just be starting to learn new words that are non-decodable, which will be few and far between. So really, at the end of year 2, I would say, and into year 3, if students have covered off all that learning that I've just described, that's when you'll really be starting to have your students move off into sort of richer reading and texts, and where it will really open up a really wide array of reading choices, because they'll really have enough of that phonics knowledge to tackle nearly every word that they read, and enough confidence to work on the words that maybe they haven't seen before. Thank you. We had a question there which Mick has answered. So GPC grapheme phoneme, it's actually correspondence. So it's when you can match a sound to a grapheme or kind of a letter. So when you know, for example, a GPC could be is when you know is the sound and it's written as the letter A. And of course, as I mentioned, things get a little bit more complex because you start to have things like I, and it's IGH, so that trigraph, sorry, so 3 written letters making that sound I. So that's what a GPC is, like knowing the sound and matching that to the letter representation. And I think I'm just having a look at the question. Deborah, that was a great question, and there's lots of terminology around phonics for us all to get our head around as we work more with phonics. Our teacher handbook has definitions and information on all this terminology included. So you could always flick back to that if you've got the teacher handbook, or it's a great reference. It's got that covered. There is a lot to remember with that. So we've made sure that we've included some of that terminology with some definitions so that you can flick back and get a reminder as you're working through the text and using these in different ways. Well, I think we've just gone over 5 o'clock, so I think it's probably time to wrap up. I'm sure everyone has very busy evenings ahead of them. So I'm just going to hand back to Kate and say thanks very much. It's been wonderful spending some time with you this afternoon. Over to you, Kate.
Thanks so much, Jo. And thank you everyone for joining us today. We hope you found the discussion and presentation useful, and that you've learnt how our exciting and colourful new Decodable series can really support students to develop both their comprehension and phonics skills at the same time. If you want more information or any of those documents Jo was talking about, please contact your local Oxford education consultant. If you'd like to learn more about the ORFC Decodable series, just visit that URL on the page there, so oup.com.au/ORFCD. Thank you for joining us today, everyone, and have a good night.